Hello, this is our third episode. I can't wait till I get to this is our 90th episode. But thank you, Susan, for being here. My special guest is Susan Sutherland. And yeah, welcome to Rugspirations, where we do sort of short interviews to get to know rug hookers from all walks of life and all different kinds of experiences and see what they're up to, why they do what they do. So welcome, Susan.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be asked to do this, so I really appreciate it. Thank you, Robin.
It's been so fun. I've been really excited to sort of just have time to talk to different people that, in person, I would maybe get a chance if we were sitting beside each other to ask these kind of questions, but that doesn't happen nowadays very easily. So this is the next best thing. And then we get to share it all with our other rug hooking friends. So we'll get started.
Okay.
Actually, that's not true. We'll get started with the questions in a second. It's the same
Okay.
one. Do you want to share where you're coming from today? People know I'm
Okay.
in Ottawa, but where are you from?
You're in Ottawa. I'm in a little community called Baden, Ontario, which is about 10 minutes from Waterloo. We're in Waterloo region. I'm about 20 minutes from Stratford, 20 minutes from St. Jacobs. I've got lots of lovely places to go to. So it's, we moved here about 17 years ago from Ottawa.
Yeah.
So it's a big change for me, but yeah, it's nice. I like it here.
Yeah. I remember when I was much younger, a teenager, visiting St. Jacobs with my mother, and the quilts, she just
Yeah.
went berserk. It was so amazing. Actually, on the same trip, we did Stratford and went to the festival. I saw a few Shakespeare plays and stuff. So definitely a nice area to visit. And I would imagine to live there too.
Yeah, it's lovely.
So thank you. So I will get started. What or who got you started in rug making?
Well, as I say to a lot of people, I've been hooking for a long time. Back when I was back in the late 1970s, my husband and I had moved to we lived and worked in Ottawa, and we had moved to a little community called North Gore. And the road that I was on, it was a dirt road, and so that the people along the road, we all got to know one another. And one of my neighbors had me over for coffee, and she had this picture on her wall, and I'd never seen anything like it in my life. And she said, it's hooked. Had no idea. I had no idea what hooking was about. I just thought it was so cool. And she said, well, it's hooked. And she was trying to tell me, she said, well, why don't you come and meet the group and meet the teacher and so on. And I said, well, when do you meet? She said, Thursdays. I said, well, I work. So what am I going to do? So I never ever got sick. But that day I got sick, and I drove with her to, I think it was in Merrickville, Ontario, and there was a group there hooking, and the teacher's name was Georgette Barabee. And I just thought, oh my gosh. And I saw what these women were doing, and I was so fascinated that she gave me all, where to get some supplies. And I said, would you teach rug hooking for me? And she said, yes, but you need so many students. I thought, oh, how am I going to do that? So I came home and I talked to a couple of friends on the street, and they said, and back up a little bit, I had just finished learning how to crochet. And I have done a lot of, crocheting, knitting, all that stuff throughout my life. So I thought, well, maybe I could put out an announcement to the community of two things, crocheting and rug hooking. And some people would maybe know what rug hooking is. Most people know crochet. So we got lots of people to come out. So we taught it in a little community center at Pierce's Corners Hall. If anybody is from the Ottawa area, they would know Pierce's Corners Hall. Lovely little hall. And so the teacher, Georgette Barabee, she would teach rug hooking, and I would run over and listen to what she was saying. Then I would run over to my group and teach them crocheting, and I would be going back and forth like that. And that's how I learned to hook. And we then ended up with about 7 or 8 of us that just loved it. And so we had Georgette come back for other workshops and classes for us. And I just got going that way. And then of course you always have that buddy that does everything with you. And my buddy, unfortunately, is no longer here with us and living, but she and I would go and take all these workshops with Joan Boyle and it was just amazing. And it was like I'd found this wonderful craft, and I literally didn't crochet anymore.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what happened to the
I
crochet?
didn't do any of that. I didn't, I used to sew my own clothes. Like it was just this thing became consuming. And so that's how I learned. And I ended up hooking the piece that my friend had hooked that was on her wall. And I
Oh,
did that about 2 years later. I hooked, and it was the Jordan Schoolhouse, which was a Ridimere design from Vineland, Ontario. And I gave it away. I can't believe it. I gave it away to my sister and her husband for Christmas. And then over the years, they weren't using it. So I got it back.
okay.
So I have it back.
I thought it was lost. Like, oh no.
No, 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 no. I got it back. I got it back. So I'm very happy about that.
I'm very curious. I have not been hooking that long, but I do feel like everything I did before has quickly taken a back seat to hooking and punching for me. But were there any lulls in it? Like, did you ever feel like, oh, I need something else?
And not there were lulls in that because I was working full time. I had a career. During the 80s, there were a lot of regional workshops. I joined the Ontario Hook and Craft Guild, and at that time they were really trying to get rug hooking going. They were trying to get the standards. So we had a lot of regional workshops, which were great. And so that they would come into Ottawa, I would take them. Sometimes I wouldn't finish them, but I'd learn some new technique. So that was sort of in the 80s. And then in the 90s, my career was really going for it. I was doing a lot of traveling and rug hooking. I couldn't rug hook very much. So that took a little bit of a back seat, but I always had a project. And then we had the really good opportunity, my husband and I, to go to Australia, he to work for 2 years and me to have fun.
Yeah.
2 years. And I took rug hooking with me, and I ended up finding a group of women who were into crafts. They'd never seen rug hooking before, but I did my rug hooking. I learned cross stitch down there, and that was fun. And I also taught rug hooking in a little quilt shop down there, which was just amazing. And and then when I came back to Canada in 97, my husband decided that we were trying to do early retirement, which he did. And I sort of drifted out of my career. And that's when I got really into rug hooking and was able to go to Trent Rug Hooking School, which I never did when I was working because I wasn't going to take a week off to go rug hooking when my husband and I were doing other things with our holidays. So and that was another turning point in my career as well, because that's when I went from a 3 and 4 cut to a wide cut.
Yeah.
And I went to textured, and I've never looked back.
Well, and I can see all the yarn behind you too, so it's not just wool.
Yeah, well, but wool yarn, that's only come in probably in the last 4 or 5 years. Because I was really we were really into wide cuts, and Wasano was my teacher at that time. And it was just an eye opener for me what we could do. And then I got into a lot of recycled wool. I used to have tons of it. I've given away a lot of it, but so your rug hooking styles change as you change, kind of thing. So so that's
fascinating. So which part, if you could pick one, or if I forced you to pick one, that is your favorite part of the process? So would it be like the planning part, the working on it, the hooking away, the finishing, like sitting back and admiring your work, or the shopping and gathering supplies?
Well, I tend to shop and gather a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know why, because I have time, but I like the plan. I have a lot of stuff now. In the last 20 years, I have been gathering a lot, and I have been very fortunate that I now have a rug hooking room. I call it a studio, but devoted just to my rug. I'm very, very, very fortunate, and I have a ton of stuff. So I love going through it and planning and pulling from what I've got, but I have a lot of stuff, so I can pull whatever I want. And then I never can quite find the right one. So sometimes I dye. I don't dye as much as I should be doing. I've got a lot of stuff that should be dyed a different color, but I'm very, very fortunate that way. And then the yarn, the pandemic, I got really into yarn. I just like, oh, this looks great. And I have a lot of yarn. And I was just at a fleece festival this past weekend, and somehow I managed to buy more yarn. I don't know why, but, it's not hoarding, it's eye candy. So So
Yes.
I do like the planning process. I didn't like it at first because, especially when I first started, because it was very structured. And so you needed your values and all that. So it was nice to have it planned in that way, but I wasn't as comfortable with it. But as I've gotten more experienced, I don't want to say older, but as I've gotten more experienced, I do like the planning process and pulling from what I've got. I love the hooking. I mean, that just, but if I've got everything there, it really works. It really works well. And I love the finishing. I think I'm one of the few people that likes finishing. I consider it the jewel of the piece, when you're it's just it finishes it completely. And I know a lot of people don't like the finishing, but I think if you have an attitude adjustment and say, okay, and I look for
Yeah.
strange and unusual things to add to it, to not detract from it, but I add to it. In my opinion, why I think I love rug hooking so much is because how you finish it is so different than any other craft. We can do all sorts of different things. We can just turn it under, we can put borders on it, we can add things to it that maybe when I'm first starting, I don't think about. But I always say, and I think I've heard you say that the piece speaks to me.
Yeah.
And I will, sometimes it speaks really loudly, and other times you have no idea
You
what.
have to listen carefully.
Yeah.
Like, what language are you
Yeah,
talking?
yeah, yeah. So to answer your question, I like it all, but the,
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
Oh.
I'm sorry, my Siri for some reason decided to talk to me. I have no idea.
It's like, what are you doing?
I must have hit something.
That's okay. Yeah, it is hard to pick. It is very hard to pick, but you are the first that says the finishing is your favorite. And I think I'm going to have to change the options, because I think to me there's a big difference between the actual work of finishing and the feeling of admiring your work, that sense of accomplishment when it's all finished.
Yeah.
I love that feeling too.
Yeah, I do too. I do too.
Little-
I especially when I've done something quite different than what I've ever done. And I tend to have a color palette that I really like, but I try to mix it up every once in a while. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't, but I don't care. It's just it's trying something new. But when it works, it really makes you feel good.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or when something's been a challenge, like you
Yeah.
struggle to find that color that's the right color, and then when you do, it's like, oh.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I don't think non-rug hookers would understand that when they see our piece.
Yeah, quilters might.
Yes. Other craft and art people probably would.
Yeah.
But I think
Yeah.
general public would be like, don't get it. What is the thing you wish you had learned, if there is something, earlier in your sort of journey with rug hooking? Like, is there something that you wish somebody had told you and you've been like, oh, that would have saved me heartache or stress or?
Yeah, I wished I'd learned that you could use just anything besides wool. That because when I've helped repair some of our family's rugs that somebody 75, 80 years ago made. And I was repairing them and thinking, there's no wool in this piece. And it looks fantastic. The backing's the problem, but and I wished I'd known about t-shirts. I knew about pantyhose because that was something that they did in the 80s. But we weren't using t-shirts. We weren't using yarn other than admiring, say, the Camp rugs. I did try that once when I had a little kit with that little teeny tiny hook, and that was like, no. So I think I would change my opinion now, but back then it was not as easy for me to do it. But I wished I'd incorporated more fibers in my pieces than I'm doing now, because very few of mine are on the floor. Very, very few. I've given some away to family, and they put them under a glass table, for example, so that they don't get stepped on, so most of my pieces are things that either are on walls or on tables or pillows or what have you. So I'm glad that I can have a variety of things to hook with now, rather than just wool, because wool is becoming, other than the yarn, the wool fabric is becoming very, very expensive, which is a concern for me, because I really think that it is a wonderful craft for people, and I don't want it to be priced out of people's reach.
Yeah, excuse me. Yeah, I agree. And I think the freedom, like to make sure that they feel they can use whatever they have
Yep.
access to. If that's wool, wonderful. But if it's not, that's okay too.
Yep.
Yeah, because it is very expensive. Um, thinking of favorite things, what is your favorite either foundation cloth, material, tool? Like, is there something that you're like, without this, I am not a happy hooker?
Well, when I first started to hook, my biggest fear was losing my hook. Now, I lived in North Gore, Ontario, and the supply chain came from Vineland, Ontario, and maybe the teacher might have a couple of extra hooks, but I wouldn't see her that often, and I was petrified. So I ended up with a lot more hooks than just that one. But over the years, I have one here, I have found a bent hook.
Oh,
I
nice.
really like a bent hook. I find it's much easier, especially when I'm hooking a lot.
Yeah.
And it's up until my first 20, I'm thinking my first 20 years of my hooking career, I only used a hoop. I mean,
Right.
using other things was never in the ball game. It wasn't, I couldn't afford it. And, so that was, so with a hoop, but this really, I find that a bent one really works well, and if people are holding it right. So I like that, but I was thinking about it
You want to
because,
show us? Can you show us how to hold it right?
well, I hold it like a carrot peeler, basically.
Okay. Okay.
That's the easiest thing. You don't hold it like a pencil. And when you're doing it with like a pencil, you're ending up with all this stress
Yeah,
right
pulling.
here. So I find holding it, and then it's because of the angle, it just goes in and brings up. You're not having to do a lot of twisting. But as to which my favorite tool, besides this, I love this one. I got that when I was at the Tigger International Hand Hooking Rug Makers Guild conference in Reeth, England, back in 2018. And I just love this one. It's brass and it just
Well,
slides in. It's just
I'm
wonderful.
so excited you said that, because I was in Vermont, and there was a silent auction, and somebody had donated. It was for a fundraiser, and I bought one of those. I've never used a bent hook, and I still haven't. I have it, but I haven't used it because it's a wide, like yours, but I'm used to a really tiny hook.
Yeah.
But I'm going to a wide strip class, and so I found my bent wide hook, and she had told me after I purchased it, or after I won the bid, that she bought it at that same event in England. It was Yvonne. I always forget her last name.
Scott. Yvonne,
thank you.
okay. Yeah, I know.
She's the one that had donated it, and
Oh,
I'm
wonderful.
lucky. Actually, I got the matching Proddy tool.
Okay. Yep.
But my other one's out of reach anyway. It's over there for the class pile.
Well, the nice thing about this one is there's a place to put your thumb.
Yeah.
So you can't not hold it correctly.
Right.
You just, away you go.
Yeah.
But the other tool that I really, really like that I am lost without is a really good lamp, a light. I'm very lucky in my rug hooking room because we put in a ton of lights and stuff here, and it's bright all the time, but I often hook in our family room, and I have a wonderful floor lamp, and I have an aught lamp. I have one as many places I can. In fact, I think Costco had that's my newest one, is from Costco, because it was such a good deal, and there's a place for a USB port, and I can put my iPad on it. I was like,
right there.
like it's fantastic. But yeah, I find good lighting really, really helps, because you can really see what your colors are. And why I like that one is because it's like a white light, like a natural, you're not getting that yellow tinge to it. So that would be another tool that I would highly recommend, having good lighting.
Yeah, I'm still working on that one. I don't have as good lighting in here, but we're working
Costco, check out Costco online.
Yeah.
It's got a really good price. I'm getting money for that.
Can you describe what rug making does for you? Like, why do you keep coming back to it? Or can you articulate it, do you think?
It's sort of like I do yoga, and I've been doing yoga for a while. To me, rug hooking is yoga for my mind. When I feel down, I'll do rug hooking. Even if I don't have any pattern, I just pull loops. And you end up with something that looks fantastic, and you think, what the heck happened here? It's just really amazing to me. And the other thing that I love about it is that I get to meet so many wonderful, like-minded people. And I think the rug hooking tribe is amazing because there's not a lot of us. And so we're always seeking one another out. I mean, I go anywhere, I'm always hunting around. Is anybody here that rug hooks? And it's like your new best friend becomes another rug hooker from another place. So it's sort of the two parts. That's what got me going in it, because once I figured out how to pull the loops without twisting and doing everything else, it was the people, and it was the women that I met were just amazing, and it's so creative. And even though they think they're not, they are wonderfully creative, and you just learn from them all the time. So it's the yoga part, the Zen, the meditation, whatever. It's I get that just pulling the loops. It's just really very calms me, even though I might have 20 different fibers in front of me and I'm spending
And it looks like
hunting.
chaos.
It looks like chaos. Well, I don't want to show you the rest of this room,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's really, that's what it does for me.
Wow. Well, and I can see your yoga rug behind you. Is that you in pose?
Well, I
More-
wish.
Oh.
I wish. I decided I had followed Alexandria Eaton, and who is a painter and a rug maker out of I think she's in Amherst, Nova Scotia. And I watched a video with her and how she does repetition, and I thought, well, I should be doing, like you learn a lot from how painters paint and so on, and composition and so on. And I thought, well, let's try doing a repetition. So that's the one that's on the wall on the back. But that was a lot of, I love doing that one. It was quite funny, but it's not me. I wish it was. Actually, they have red hair. They do have red hair. So as close as I can get.
Well, it is very pretty. And actually, I didn't know it was inspired by Alexandria, but I love her work too, and her colors and so yeah, I could see the connection now. And I'm going to share my screen so we can see one of your pictures. I ask everybody to just send me one, which I know is really hard, and I can't even imagine how many you've made.
I can't either.
I was going to say, have you ever kept track or tried to?
I started to, and no.
Okay. Too many to count.
Too many to count, but I chose this one. I did this in 2017, and I took a class from the wonderful Diane Cox, and unfortunately Diane Cox is no longer with us, and I just wish everybody could meet Diane Cox or have the experience to take a workshop from her and meet her, because she was the most wonderful person. Anyway, it was a workshop in Barrie that I went to, and I think it was called a Strong Women Workshop. And how Diane teaches is you find a photo of a pose or whatever, and she had a bunch of cards that she brought with her from England, and you collaged it, and you made a collage with paper, so that all of a sudden the photo of this artist that did it, it started becoming more and more yours. And so I collaged this thing, and this was in 2017, and I was quite unnerved as to what the world was going through during that time. And I was quite upset, and I thought, I'm going to do a protest woman. I'm going to do this. Anyway, I got with Diane. I wanted her to be life-size. She's not, but she is. If I stand beside her, the top of the sign is my height. So
okay,
somehow she got shrunk.
It's still pretty big.
So yeah, so it's a good size, and so she helped us all do it, and we chalked it out. We used chalk, and we drew. It's just hand drawn, and we put it. We put the linen on the wall, put it up there, and we drew our faces and so on, and. You don't have the collage picture of it, but you can see where it came from, where the original thing, but this is definitely mine. She's called Heidi. She's my alter ego. I can take that sign and change it out. So if we had before the pandemic, we'd have guests over, I'd have a sign welcoming everybody, or if I was teaching a workshop, I'd have a sign saying this is the workshop is this, and I can change that out. And then the other thing that Diane had us doing was, how can you incorporate objects or linens or doilies or things that perhaps like your mother might have used. And you can't see it very well in this picture. That's the only problem. There's no way you can get it a little closer, but you can
Yeah.
see on her hat.
Oh, a hat. Yep.
Or the purse, doesn't matter, the hat or the purse down a
Oh,
little.
I do see it now. Yeah.
So, okay, so that was, I went to one of the thrift stores and there was this lovely doily with all these little things on it, which I would never use, but I thought, oh, wouldn't that be cool to put on this hat? So that's what I did with the hat. And there's a little pin on there. And then I had, because I had been over to England, we got the Votes for Women. And the hardest part of this whole process was hooking the face. And once I just started, and this very nice person came out, even though at the time I was trying to be, I'm protesting. She doesn't look like she's really protesting, but I have a feeling that's probably Diane Cox's influence because she was such a lovely person. And if you can see, I've got red hair in there, and that's different fibers in that. There's sari silk in here, and then I did the shading and the
skirt. How did you do the skirt?
Well, the skirt was actually, I had that dyed wool, which I love the wool. And I thought, how can I use this? And the piece, the picture that I collaged, the woman's skirt had all these swirls on it. So where we were, they had this yarn. Well, it's yarn. I've got a piece, some of it here I can do afterwards. So I thought, well, rather than hooking her whole skirt, why don't I put it on there? And I coiled it on and sewed it all on. So that became that. And then I happened to be in a thrift store and there was this little purse, just the right color. So now she's carrying a purse. And then I happen to have my partner, Ken, loves my rug hooking, and he'll do anything for me. So he built me the stand. So once she was all done, and we traced it out, and he built it wood, and there's a kickstand in behind there, and she stands up, and I write on the back where she's been and where she's visited. And so it was an amazing experience to have this kind of workshop where your creativity it was just incredible. And everybody in the group just came up with some wonderful, wonderful pieces. So this is my ode and my homage, I guess, to Diane Cox, because she really was something else. She was a wonderful, wonderful person. So anyway, so she's kind of fun. So there's Heidi. Keep calm and hook on. It's my motto.
I love that. Well, and I love that you can change the message. I think that's such a smart idea, that you can write your own things on there. Wow. Thank you so much. Those are our 6 questions. We got through them all in no time. So thank you for taking time to chat with me, Susan. And I look forward to hooking with you, continue to hook with you, because you always inspire me as well. And you always have something to teach us or to remind us how to do something. It is very helpful. So thank you for joining me today.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. And I hope I didn't freeze, because I think you froze a little bit on your side. I'm never sure who's freezing. I
know. That's people, I think, are used to it nowadays. I will just stop record here though, but thank you.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me.